Steve, you have shared it already. Super fast. Love it. Okay, let's see. People. Right, I see Adam, Kyla, Ben. Do you guys want, meanwhile, we are waiting for folks to start, to join in. Ben and Kyla, Adam, do you guys want to just use the chat and say where you guys are joining from? You guys can type in the chat section, which is on the right side. Joining from Cambridge. That's amazing. Joining from North Shore. Ben. I'm joining Steve. Joining from Boston, having just 2 hours from my spacecraft. Uh, as always. Um, awesome. So we have 5 minutes in. Sherry, do we want to get
Yeah,
started?
let's get started.
Yeah, all right. So I know like folks will just start trickling in, probably getting lunch Friday afternoon. So thank you everyone for joining us on our virtual fireside chat. I'm so thrilled to have Sheri Palazzo with us today, where you will learn a lot about her story, journey as a women in tech, engineering. She is a founder, coach, mentor, and so many things. I'm curious and would love to know more from her as well. Where we'll share the insights and the lessons learned along the way. Um, the way we're going to do it, like we'll have some questions, and then at the end of the session we'll have 15 minutes just if you guys have any questions, so we can answer those. But I'm your host, Shweta Agrawal, co-director and chief product officer at Boston New Technology, along with like Jason and Steve. And Sherry, she is founder, coach, and mentor at Saplings Consulting. But Sherry, please, tell us more about yourself.
Oh, I am a techno nerd at heart. I think from when I was little, I just loved to tinker and take things apart and build things. Um, the when I got to the place of like, what do I want to do as a career? Like, who knows what that is when you're like 16, 17, 18, but you get put on a path. And so my two paths at that point was engineering or art school, which my parents nixed. And so um, in retrospect, thinking about it, like they're both just highly creative fields. And you're just in the engineering side, you're just being creative within the bounds of science and physics and budget and all the other things that we can talk about as we go through this conversation. Or you're being like, fine art creative. And so I think that's the core of my being is I love to be creative. And so I ended up at college. I picked Tufts because they had a good engineering program and a liberal arts in case I hated it. And after that, it just ended up being the right path for me. And I've been in the tech new product development space for my whole career. 25 plus years into that. And I am blown away that I'm sitting in front of you today.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. I mean, I could relate to you. So I had little, the same. So originally I'm from India, and I had technology was not even in the picture. I was like, oh, I just want to be a doctor. I want to be a neurosurgeon. And I was like, okay, that's what I'm gonna do. And then I realized I cannot stand blood. And I was like, how can I become a doctor now? I mean, you have to be like either your dentist or, anything. You day in, day out, you have to deal with that. But I had this purpose, like I want to help people, right? And then I moved into like tech, and I hated it. I was like, I don't want to code and everything. But then I realized it's fun, like you can do so many things when you're in technology. And then I moved into management. So having a mix of both, technology and management, really helped me to be where I am. So thank it's great to know that you have that creative side along with like
Yeah, and
engineering.
I'm thinking about it as we're talking, and like I'm creative today, even. So, like getting saplings off the ground was a highly creative part of my life. But as I'm working with startups, I'm leaning into that creativity, like helping them think outside the box. With my one-on-one coaching clients, which we'll also talk about, I have to be in that space with them in a creative way of like, how do we get to where you want to go and
Mhm.
not be confined to how you've been doing it before? So the creativity keeps coming out.
Oh yeah, that helps a lot because every startup and every founder is so different, like different problems. So that's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. Like as we're talking like from engineering to you have become like a mentor and coach for a startup. Like what inspired you? I know you touch based. You wanted to be more creative and what inspired this transition to be a mentor and a coach at Saplings Consulting?
Yeah. So if we take away saplings as its official thing, I've been
Mhm.
doing this for ages. I think I've always been someone who loves to help others, and people would come to me for advice or mentorship or whatever. And the answer was always yes. And then as I moved up into my startup leadership career, I had more visibility at a higher level. And so that ask of advice or mentorship kept coming up even more so. And at some point, I was like, is there something with this um, to make it official? And so we can go into the whole sapling story
Mhm.
about it was not a plan. Like I had not planned on starting a consulting business at all. And I got through COVID and we're all suffering. But our company at the time, I was working at Alteros as VP of Engineering and Ops, and COVID hit, and we were literally in a conference room with 20 people. One of them like saying he was never been so sick before
Wow.
in a
Yeah.
conference room that was meant to hold like 10. And we were in a product design cycle. So it was like we're brand new product, clean sheet of paper. Let's get this launched. We're in a room to design this or spec it out, and the company shut down. And
Mhm.
one of my proudest moments was helping us get through 18 months from clean sheet of paper to a product shipped out to a customer. Um, and it took so much out of me to do it because I'm project manager, engineering, systems lead, um, many different hats along the way, HR support. People are
Yeah.
working off hours, all of that. And I just put more of myself into it. And so burnout hit, and I was like, I don't know what to do next. I was still
Yeah.
working there, but I gifted myself for a birthday present to take a coaching class through Harvard Extension. And I did that week, and I was like, oof, I really like that. And I realized it had filled these other parts of me that had been neglected through COVID, of like personal development, professional development, and like these one-on-one really deep connections. And so Saplings was kind of launched off of that. So my husband said, if you want to do this, you need to do something about it. And I'm like, you're right. And it was one of those events in our lives where he and I were heading off on a day trip, and he's talking with me, and he's like, just do it. Like, pick a name, put a shingle up, see what happens. And we're on vacation in Algonquin, and this little,
Oh wow. Look at that.
so it says, have big dreams and grow into them.
Yeah. Wow.
And we had just done a naming game in the car to call this thing Saplings.
Mhm.
And this was what put it over the edge. I'm like, all right, let's do this.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Wow. I mean, personally, Woganput is my favorite place, and I love the story that you're talking about. And it's great, like your husband, like sometimes we keep thinking and we never take action, even though
Yeah.
we know, okay, we have to do it, but we never start. So I'm so glad that, you got that push. You have like, take chances, take risk, what can happen, right? And that's the start of like Saplings Consulting, which is, amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. Um, so with like about like when saplings consulting came into the picture, and before that like you had like 25 years of experience, working for companies like HPG and Bose. What are some of the most valuable lessons that you carried into your work, like while working with startups and working with like as a coach?
I would say that, like, again, you hear the starting story of like going into engineering, kind of like, all right, let's give this a try. I think all of my career moves have been similar. It was like an opportunity came in front of me. And as long as I was learning from it, then it was good. I was fine with it. And so every job I've had, every project I've been on is a learning experience. So I've been able to take those learnings and build and build and build off of it. So by the time I got to Alteros in 2016, it was my first startup experience. I had done the bigger companies, and I had all of these ideas, again, creativity, all these ideas of like, if I had more autonomy and more leadership, like, what would I try? And startup is great for that. It's about like, try something, improve, pivot. Like, it's just a culture of being able to just try and fail fast.
Mm-hmm.
And so I tried a bunch of stuff that I had never been able to do before, and some things worked and some things didn't. And I also came to the table at that point in my career with lessons of what not to do. So each of those projects and companies, I walked away with like, never do that. I'm never going to do that again. Let's avoid this. And so I think that's what I bring to the table that's really valuable to startups, is that I have this experience from working at different companies and different types of products. And so my skill set is also very wide and
Yeah.
on top of being technical. And I can, one of my startups said it best. They're like, you help us see around the corner. We
Mm-hmm.
don't know what we don't know, but you have.
Yeah, that's the best. Like sometimes they're like so deep down, like working on things that they don't see, right? Like they don't know. Like teams sometimes have to think like, okay, what it means like in 6 months, 1 year, 2 year long down the line, and you're helping them see that because that's what shapes the ideas and the work and prototype, whatever you name it. I'm curious, like I love what you said because you have worked in so many different industries, so many different teams, like big and small, and multiple startup companies and the big companies. Definitely every company and every team operates so differently, right? Like when you work with an engineering team or in a big company, it's so different. Like you have one project, one product, and that's what you focus on. Whereas you work in a startup company and you're working with the team, it's so different, right?
Mhm.
As you mentioned, like what, if I may ask, like what one or two things you have learned which you would love to avoid, or which you think like, oh, next time I'm gonna avoid these things, like, yeah. So if you could share that, that'll be
Yeah,
great.
so there is our my GE days. There were so many things that they did well. Like they did management training really well. They had some level of structure in place that was as company wide as they could make it. Um, and they made things so inefficient. um, and so there was the inefficiencies of GE that made me want to jump and go to start. The startup was the next phase after that, because I was so frustrated at GE. And I remember being like, okay, like the people. I definitely had a bunch of really wonderful, extremely smart people working at GE. The management was less so. And I was at a point in my career where I had enough mentorship and contacts that, like, if I went to them and say, "Hey, can you help me get to this role?" they would have said yes. But there were no other role I wanted to do. And so then I moved over to Alteros. I was like employee number 15. Um, I got pulled in by a GE contact. So she
Mhm.
had said, "Can you come help us over here?" I said, "Sure, give this a try." And then we pulled in all our favorite GE people. So at some point, I think it was like 8 of us from the same
Yeah.
group of GE that came over to the Alteros. And my CEO at the time was like, "Sheri, if we keep hiring GE people, we'll turn into GE." And I said, "No, no, no, no. It's the opposite. We've all experienced what that's like, and we don't want to see this happen. So we will
Yeah.
guarantee you won't turn into GE with the right people here." So that's one. Really, my philosophy about this is a people first.
Yeah.
And if you treat your people well and you put them as your priority, then things just happen.
Mhm.
And if you lose track of that, that's when your retention risk is higher. People leave. There's in conflict, that kind of thing. So that's my one major thing for any company, honestly, but startups in particular. As you're planning and strategizing, make sure your people are treated first. They're like 80% of your budget anyway. So
Yeah.
why wouldn't you protect that over
Yeah.
anything else?
Yeah. So how have you, like, what differences have you seen, like, while you were working? I'm guessing, like, you might have worked with, like, a couple of teams when, at GE and a couple of teams at Edelfelt. What strategy, or like how did you work with the team, like making sure that, okay, this is what my team needs or team member needs? Like how did you work with them to make sure that, they're happy, they are like aligned with the goals and the objectives?
Communication is the top one. A clear
Mhm.
communication. There's different levels that companies are comfortable with, but I am as transparent as I possibly can be in my friendships, in my work relationships. Like, what you see is what you get. I'll do it kindly, but I'm going to give you all the information I can possibly give you because I want to treat you like an adult that can make your own decisions. And
Mhm.
all of us are going to make better decisions with the right information, with the correct information.
That's
Um,
yeah.
yeah, go ahead.
I was saying that is so important, right? Like, I mean, that's the way you mentioned, like, that helps to build the trust, right? Like, having open and honest conversation and communication, like, having both the parties, aligned with, okay, this is what it means. And so there is no like gray area, right? Like, how, and that, to be honest, helps to build a relationship between, teams and, like, even if like direct reports or indirect reports or whoever it may be. So you touched like on a really good point. And I can imagine like that's the reason you got like the best Boston Best Tech Manager award in 2020. So I would love to know, like, I know you mentioned a couple of those, like, what leadership principle or strategies help you achieve this? I know you mentioned like having the open conversation. What would you advise as well, like someone who is maybe a new manager or someone who is already working in, startup company or, large companies, and they're trying to work with the new teams. So how do they develop those leadership skills and navigate those?
With that award, was one of my most moving moments, not because I won the award, but because my team shared their application they submitted that told about why they were nominating me. I'm getting teary thinking about it. And one of the things they said is like, she is in this for us and not her. So that was one of the things. And another is she's not going to ask us to do anything that she's not willing to do herself. Um, and that is so important to me. And I think it attracts people that want to work with me or work in my groups and teams because we're all in it together. Like, it's not I'm here and you're there and I'm going to boss you around and tell you what to do. Like, we each have our strengths, and I value and appreciate each person for their individual strengths, and combined together is why we can do amazing things.
Mhm.
So my skills might be some set and another person could be completely the opposite, and that's what makes us stronger, the synergy between our skill sets aligning together or working together. And so that's another core thing. Clarity of communication of like, what is expected? What are we doing? One of the things when I sit with a startup and I'm like just getting to know them, that's the first set of questions. Like, what are your goals? Are you all in agreement as a team of what these are? Because if you're working at different goals, then you don't have that synergy. If you can all be on the same goals, there's less chaos, there's more efforts going in the right places. And I think that carries forward for everybody.
Yeah, that's great. Like, and while you were working with like different teams and even the founders and the startups, right? Like, um, what have you seen, like the qualities or the pattern that have stood out for you? For me, for example, like some of them have like clarity, some of them are like open to sharing, and some of them like you have to like ask them more questions. I mean, what qualities have stood out for you? Like, for example, for as a leader or as a manager, like yes, you have to be open and communicate and you have trust and clarity. What qualities do you think as a team member should have as well that can resonate and help align with the managers or
I think
leaders?
another one that's really important, because you hit the top ones that like are the value system for myself, is continuous improvement. With
Hmm.
a continuous improvement mindset, it means that you let go of egos to be like, I don't know it all. I'm willing to grow and change. And you're willing at that point. One of the things that I coach new leaders particularly about is those difficult feedback conversations. And if you have a high rapport with your direct report or anyone you're working with, then being open and honest and transparent with what's going on um, is important. But it's how that other person, their personality, are they going to receive that well? And that
Yeah.
continuous improvement mindset is the key to that. If you think you figured it out and you're done, then there's not much growth to be had. If you go in and say, yes, please give me the feedback, both the positives and the negatives. Like I can just every day I can do it a little bit better.
Yeah.
That's going to build a really nice team.
Now that's amazing. Like always having that growth mindset where I always
Yeah.
like no one is perfect. Like every day you keep learning. And if you think like, oh, I have all the knowledge, that means like someone is not growing, right? Like you learn about something new or you have like never knew about something. So you're always gonna grow and learn and having that mindset really helps you to go and achieve what you want. Um so you have worked like with over 50 plus startups and 100 plus individuals. How do you tailor your coaching? I know you have touched base a little bit, but I would love to know more coaching to how you tailor your coaching to meet diverse needs of each startup, especially like in the areas product design and team building.
Yeah, I'll start out a little bit with that there's a spectrum of the relationships that we have in the role I'm in. And it ranges from a advisor, which is basically making just and there you're not supposed to be leaning more toward making the decisions for you of like this is what I think you should do, to a mentorship role, which is I lived the life that you're or something similar, and let me tell you about my experiences and how I dealt with it, all the way to the coaching, where the coaches is just an exploratory curiosity conversation that opens up thought and ideas and clarity based on the person. So if we
Mhm.
go in that spectrum of coaching is for the person and helping them figure out what they need and want, all the way
Mhm.
to advising, which is tell me what I should do or what you think I should do. I run that entire spectrum.
That's
And so
great.
that's how I cater it. And that could be within a conversation, even like in a single conversation. It might start off as like an advising, and then we'll move into a coaching conversation of more questions and like curiosity and untangling what's in their heads. And that's how I individualize it. So it's not even per company or per person, it's per meeting. Like everyone is not quite sure what they need at the time.
Oh yeah, no, you brought like a great point. Like to be honest, I had like or mentorship or coaching and advisory. It's all the same, but no, you have helped to understand. There is like differences in every mentoring. Like as a mentor, it's different. Like as a coach, it's different, and that is so true. Like when you go to a meeting, like every meeting is not gonna be the same. Like you don't need like the teams will not be looking for coaching or mentor. Like how understanding the need, and it's very tough. And I'm glad like you have that expertise where you go and talk to the team and help them understand what they need. You help them identify what is like you should be doing, or this is what you should be doing. Because when you talk like I have like spoken as a mentor to like a couple of founders and entrepreneurs, they struggle with that. Like they're like, oh, we have this idea but we don't
Mhm.
know how to scale, like how to do this XYZ. So it's very important like where you come into the picture and you really help them to move along
I'll
and
even do this definition with them off the bat. I'm like, here's the different roles I can play in this conversation. Tell me which one you want me to play. And
yeah.
we can literally switch the hat of like, okay, I'll do coach first. Let's untangle. Let's come up with all the ideas that you have. All right. I'll put my mentor hat. This is what I did in your situation or similar situation. And at the last one I try to save is the advisory of like, do you want my opinion?
Yes, sign me up for that. That. Um, so tell me more about like as we're talking about like mentoring and coaching, as someone who's trained as a executive coach and mentor, what do you believe are the most critical skills founders need to develop? When they're scaling from scrappy startups to sustainable. I'm sure like you've worked with early stage founders and growth stage founders.
Yeah, it's different skill. It depends on the skill set they have on the team, right?
Mm-hmm.
So some of the startup founders are both technical founders and they are have a skills gap on the operational or business development side. So then I can work with them of like, I'm not an expert in this, but one, I can help you find someone. But two, these are some of the things that you could be working on for your own company growth and professional growth in order to fill this gap. And Ben's on the phone and he'll laugh at this because he and I used to talk about this. There's three different pillars or foundations that a startup needs to go. And ideally, they're working in parallel at the same pace. Does it happen? Not very often, but we try. So it's the technical product development, it is the customer and sales, business development, and funding. And if those three can progress at the same pace, everything is great.
Right? Oh, yeah, yeah. That's the, the ideal stage. If things can progress, like all those three things, that would be amazing.
Yes. And so that's where I can pop in and say, okay, your expertise, your skill set, I'm not going to know your tech better than you, but I can help you build the tech team to support that if that's the one that's struggling. If it's the business development side, the sales side, then like, here's some processes or connections I can give you in this. I'll be completely frank. I tell them straight off the bat, I don't do the fundraising and the financing investments on purpose. Like, I have built a wall there. But as I'm helping more and more startups, I realize I at least need to know. So I was at Boston Startup Week this week. It's ending today. And all of the classes I took was on finance and fundraising. So I can talk the talk a little bit more today.
No, that's amazing. It's always important because you brought a good point. Like, sometimes founders come in and they have an idea that like depending, right? Like, is it health tech, fintech, ed tech, right? Like sometimes in the health tech founders, they need the funding in order to even like create have the prototype ready to, promote or market or test it out. And in that case, the first question they will have is like, oh, I need funding. Like, how even I go and get the funding because I just have an idea, a deck, and
Yeah.
that's it. Like, so it's very, that's when, every industry is so different. What like when you talk to the founders, for example, how, and I'm curious to know, like, for example, there's a, let's say hypothetically, there is a founder, and if they have like 10 different ideas,
Mm-hmm.
and they have like, oh, we have 10 different features we want to do, like everything is important, or this is what we
That never
think.
happens.
No, exactly, right? Like we know that 10 things are never going to be important or urgent. There are like only two or three things that they can launch or should be launching. So, have you come across a situation like that, and how you help the founders to say that, hey, you should not be doing 10 things. You don't have resources, you don't have money, you have like to launch, you have to
Yeah,
have,
the first major conversation that is about these like bigger, we used to call them BHAGs, big hairy ass goals.
Mhm,
Or I also use the analogy of like a lighthouse. Like, there's this blinking light somewhere out far, far away. What is that? What are you working toward? What are you trying to get to? And that helps clarify what they could be working on. Because
yeah.
if it doesn't get you toward your light, then it's not worth doing today. You have too few resources and too little money to
Mhm,
do everything. Pick your lighthouse and follow that. And then we do a gap assessment of, in order to meet those goals that now align, do you have the right staff? Do you have the right money? Do you have the right time?
mhm.
And now you can get them to really, really focus. Okay, with the resources you have, these are the three that make the most sense to focus on right now. Or these are the ones to focus on this week or this month, right? Because
Yeah.
it all depends on where they're trying to get to and where the biggest risks are, and really honing in where effort should be put.
I love that. I love that terminology. Maybe I'll be starting using that, like lighthouse thing. Like, oh, you need to know like where you're heading and how you're trying to approach that.
Yeah.
Um, I love that the way that you also mentioned the lighthouse and the gap assessment. I have seen like sometimes the founders or entrepreneurs, they, there is a gap. Like, it's like in, when you talk to them, like, they will be like, sometimes it's only like a solo founder, right? Or it's a two
Mhm.
people, and not everyone's, let's say they're a tech founder, and not on so much on the business side. So in that case, how do you suggest them that, hey, there is a gap between your idea and the MVP, or the
Yep.
goals? What like kind of assessment do you, just like one or two things that you ask them to do, exercise that will help their brain thinking like, okay, this is what I need to think about as I'm a tech founder,
Yeah. So
without.
we've gone through the farthest away, right? We've gone through the, what's your lighthouse? What are you striving toward? We've gone through the shorter goals. And then I'll go through with them with the roles and responsibilities.
Mhm,
So, what are all the responsibilities that are on your plate, the team's plate, that that needs to get done? And this is where, as an advisor, I can come in and add more to that list because I've seen a wider breadth of work, to be like, hey, you're missing X, Y, and Z. We add that to the list, and now we start assigning that to the roles, to how
yeah.
many people are on staff, and who's responsible for each of these tasks. And that also is the next level of gap analysis. what's missing, what
Mhm.
task needs to get done that you either don't have the time or the skill sets to do, and how do we fill that? Do we fill that by stretching someone already on your team? Do we bring in a part-time person? Do we bring in a someone like me as a consultant to come in and fill that gap a little bit? There's lots of options, but first you need that assessment of where you actually are and get the clarity of what needs to get done.
Yeah, and accepting that, like, okay, I don't have all the information. Like, this is where I'm going to start, and work towards it. Love that, love that. And last question on the mentoring part, like, and then we'll dive into another section. But how figuring out the right amount of process. So, how would you suggest the founders, like, given they, like, they don't have any processes when they're startup, like, they'll do things as they want. So, what kind of like some processes that you would suggest, like early founders or mid-stage founders?
You're going to love my answer. It depends. That if you're doing a leader of a startup, this is your biggest challenge.
Yeah.
The right amount of process at the right time. If you overdo the process, people are going to complain that they don't want to do the process and it's wasting their time. If you
Mm-hmm.
don't have enough process, then there's work being redone or overruled or inefficiencies, and that's not good. And finding that sweet spot of when to add in process and the right amount at the right time is the biggest challenge, and there's no one answer to that. All I can tell you is the way to evaluate it is, are people complaining because it's too much process? Are they complaining that there's not enough? And when they're not complaining, you're good.
Yeah, that's always tricky. No, I love that. I love that. Um, so moving on to the next segment, about like, what do you enjoy most about like Boston technology?
So I got involved with this. Steve and Jason reached out, I think, earlier this year, and I just love the community that you're building, and it aligns so well with my importance, which is community as well. As an EIR expert in residence at Greentown, I'm also part of the community team, and so I love that Boston New Technology is doing that as a bigger scale. So it's all of these people who are excited about startups and tech coming together and wanting to support each other, whether that's like volunteering at pitch practice or showing up at the meetups or your bigger events, the startup weekend events. Like, just seeing all that community come together with the similar passion is just inspiring. And then the team that you guys have is why I'm here. Is because Jason and Steve have reached out and said we'd love to get you involved, and then you as COO pulling this together and like just making it so easy and wonderful to work with. Like, I'm so happy and proud to be part of this.
No, I am super honored. Like while working, like talking to you the day I met you, and I was like, this is an amazing person. Like, you make things so personable. You make it more friendly and easygoing. Like even planning for this, fireside chat, I had like fun, planning. And this is it didn't feel like, I was like, oh, I'm learning more about her, and so it was such an honor to have you on our fireside chat where you came in, shared like because it's great like having in Boston, right, or anywhere, like there are tons of founders and entrepreneurs, but they are always struggling. They're always like, it's so fragmented, like they don't have right resources, or they don't know like who to go to, like for mentoring and coaching. And the work that you're doing at Saplings Consulting, providing all that resources where founders can have those information and they feel like, okay, I can discuss and have those conversations. That's great. And it's great that you felt that Boston Technology is also helping to build a community for founders and doing all those pitch practices. And we had Startup World Cup last month, and we're gonna have like Techstar Startup Weekend next year. So we are looking forward to like have bringing more community in. Um,
We have to
one,
support each other.
yeah,
It's a tough job getting a startup off the ground and successful. Like, don't do it yourself. Lean into your even peer-to-peer support is so important. To have that person look at you and be like, yeah, I totally get what you're going through. Just eases the pressure.
it does. It does. Like I have so and a couple of events I went, like I was talking to founders and they were like, I don't want, like they feel, and they're like solo founders and they feel even if they have amazing idea, they don't step out of the house. They're
Mhm.
like, I want to do this, but I'm like, it's in people think like, being a founder, being an entrepreneur is like such a fancy thing. You have like, you have like millions of dollars and everything, but no, there are like so many struggles. You are like doubting yourself. You don't know like if your ideas is gonna work, and all those things. And having that support, as you said, like even just making sure that what you're doing is the right. You're doing moving in the right direction. That gives them more motivation and encouragement to just keep moving forward and never give up. I
And one of
think.
my favorite roles is cheerleader, like honestly. So as an advisor or someone more senior in this area, like I want to cheer you on. I want your company to succeed. Like all of these wonderful ideas, like the more of them that succeed, the better humanity is going to be, the better our society is going to be. So I'm going to cheer you on. I'm going to give you that support. I remember a really quick story on that is one of my startup founders, um, female CEO, and we met. And one of our first conversations, I just looked at her and was like, "How are you doing?"
Yeah.
And she's like, "Why? Do I look sick?" And I was like, "No, this is tough stuff. Are you okay? How are
Yeah.
you doing?" And
Yeah.
she was so taken off guard that someone was worried about how she as a person was doing and not just how the company was doing. And so we need to do that for each other. We need to do those check-ins. We need to support each other at the emotional side, the people side, the individual side.
No, it is so important. Wow, I love that. I love that. People like don't take that time to take, really ask like how you're really doing, how you're like. So I love that, you take that, and try to like find, are they doing like, yes, business wise, but like personally, like how emotionally, it's very important, and making sure like they don't burn out. Like this brings another question I have, like, how do you have any advice, or, if you have worked any, with previous startups where how someone can make sure that yes they're working towards the ideas or their startups, but also like preventing that burnout, like or those feeling miserable while they're working, because it's a as a solo founder, yes, you feel that sometimes. So how someone can overcome that?
Yeah, the first thing is being accurate in yourself. Pause, do those check-ins, have those pure meetings of someone where you're checking in on each other and just sitting in it and being like, how am I doing? Is this sustainable? Because that's what burnout is, right? You're
Yeah.
so much stress, so much work that you're working harder than your body is able to keep up. And yes, we can definitely have those stretch moments where we're really pushing ourselves because there's some deadline or whatever. But then
Hmm.
you also need recovery. And so
Yeah.
if you're in continuous, endless push, stretch, at some point, your body can't stretch anymore. And that's what causes the burnout. So the first step is assessment of like, where am I? When I was doing my own recovery, it was like one of my HR people found this 20 question quiz, and I was taking it about once a week. I was like, how's my burnout this week? Am I coming down? Am I going up? And getting to that place of like understanding myself to then
Hmm.
be like, crap, I'm creeping up in the 9-10 level again this week. I should cancel some stuff over the weekend or take a half day off or a day off next week or in the very near future. Unfortunately, in general, managers and companies are going to take as much as you're willing to give. So you
Yeah.
have to be the first one to put that line in. But you, I'm looking at the global public here, as managers, need to check on your people.
Yeah.
Do that quick assessment of yourself, ask them how they're doing. Um, because when they hear it from you that like, hey, I think you need to take some time, they're more likely to listen to it than if they do it themselves.
No, that's great. That's really important. Like I've seen people working like, hours and hours, like even on the weekends, and they feel like, okay, I have to work. I mean, even I have seen like people, one of my friends, they were like on their vacation and they took their laptops and they were like
Mhm.
working with the laptops with their cousins. I'm like, so that is like how you can still have, you need to have that time to refresh and recharge, and, just like, not be working, and, that will help to increase the productivity. So I love that, checking on people, making sure they need the time to, refresh that, recharge themselves.
And I would make my coworkers be my accountability partner in this. So if
Hmm.
I was going on vacation, first I'd give them warning for like 2 weeks ahead, like, don't forget I'm going on vacation. Don't forget I'm going on vacation. And then the day before, I'd be like, all right, vacation starts tomorrow. My job is to go on vacation. Yours is to make sure I don't do any work.
Yeah.
And just saying it out loud reinforced that like someone was going to make me feel guilty if I did something while I was on my vacation.
Yeah, and I love that. I love that building that culture, just like
Yeah.
holding that, like having them know. I love it. And um, as we're talking about, like the culture, like what has been most rewarding part of your journey so far with Saplings Consulting? Is there like any particular success story that stands out for you?
The first story is really a personal one, which
Mm-hmm.
is I didn't think this was possible. So it was like a brave leap for me to leave a steady paying job and move into the consulting space. And about, I don't know, 4 or 5 months in, I was like, is this really a job? It doesn't feel like work. And as a coach, I had to evaluate why that was. And it's because I'm leaning and leveraging my natural strengths, the things I'm passionate about, and doing that. And so when your passions and your strengths align with your work, it doesn't feel like work.
Yep. Yep. It's joy, right? Like every day you feel like, oh, I'm, gonna do this thing. It's like just something that you really enjoy.
Yeah.
I love that. And um and bringing this, like I love that, you were your husband like pushed you and you took that leap of faith, like sometimes, as I said, like we don't do things that we want to do, and we have to trust ourselves and take more risks. Is there any advice for someone who is scared, who wants to do something, but they're like, I don't know, like should I be like, what would you advise?
I'm gonna give you a coaching tool, like something that came from my training, and another way of like evaluating where you are. So it's called the comfort zone. And
Mm-hmm.
in the middle of the target is your comfort zone. It's what you do every day and you don't think about it and it's fine. And then outside of that is a stretch zone where you're pushing yourself to grow, to learn, to whatever. And then outside of that is panic. So for each individual, you can say, I have this idea. I want to start a startup. Okay. So this is how you do a startup. You go and you create an LLC and you come up with an idea and, da, 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 da. And all of a sudden they go in panic and they go, never mind. And they go back into the middle into their comfort zone.
Yeah.
So you need to do it in a way that it's stretching you without making you panic. So evaluate what those ideas are. I have this idea. I want to do this. First step that might be in the stretch zone might be just talking to people. I have this idea for a product. What do you think? You haven't
Mm-hmm.
started anything officially, so you're able to stretch it. And then you stretch a little more. Like, oh, I talked to 10 people this week. Maybe I'll do 20 next week. Or maybe I'll do a paper MVP. Like, do something. Get out of your comfort zone, because in your comfort zone, you're not growing. Put something in your stretch zone and try that out. And if you get to panic, back off so that you're still moving forward.
Love that. Like keep moving forward, even like small steps, like do something and that will, accumulate and we'll see, okay, I have made so much progress. I love that. I love that. I know we are like 12:45. We'll take one more question from you, Sherry, and then, we'll go around the room and see if folks have any question. Um, so this is like something we've been talking and we have touched, but I would love to know, now you look back and what advice would you give yourself, like your younger self, and when you were just like starting in engineering?
Oh, okay. I think I would lean into this comfort zone. I think I was playing it very safe as my younger self. I felt like I needed to be perfect at what I was doing before I could ask for something else. And honestly, younger self, and this happened 2 years ago. It's something I'm still going through of like, how much, how comfortable do I need to do before I ask, or feel like I've accomplished something, and to
Mhm.
increase that window to be like, it's okay if you don't. So younger career people, like, ask for to try something new, ask to be involved in something that's outside of your scope. Again, it's all about continuous improvement and learning. And so make those opportunities for yourself, even if you feel a little uncomfortable about it.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. And a follow-up question, like, I keep hearing people like who are like, in early, like entry level, they're like trying to, either like in professional or like startup world, they'll be like, oh, but I don't have that skill set, or I, have imposter syndrome, and they feel like, oh, I don't have that experience. So you would suggest like that, okay, just keep push forward, like, just try it out, like little
So
by
let's
little.
say, yeah, a perfect example is that you're an entry level engineer. And I do this as a manager with my team. I'll say, let's go through what your goals are for this year, the quarter, whatever. Um, Outside of that, is there an interest or a skill that you want to gain. And in having that conversation with me as their manager, who's a little bit more empowered, I can create those opportunities. It might be just joining a meeting that like you're in product, right? Like my engineer is really interested in product management. I'll go, Shweta, can so-and-so sit in your meeting so they can learn about what it's like to be in product? And you go, sure. Like it doesn't cost you anything. It doesn't cost me anything. It's an hour of this person's time. And they all of a sudden like feel like they're moving forward and learning about something new. I think you can always make those small asks. If you're going in and saying, hey, I want to be VP of the team in 2 years, you might not, that might put someone in a panic zone, but that stretch zone would be okay to ask.
Yeah, no, I love that, asking and, just like having that, 20% of goals and you just like, hey, can I try this out or shadow or something, that really helps to achieve, move forward towards that goal. Awesome. Thank you so much, Sheri, for, answering all my questions. Do want to give chance to the audience if they have any questions. Folks, you can type your questions in the chat. And then we can like go over those questions. I'm just taking a look at our chat if there are any questions people might have listed here. Adam have like, I remember when your burnout hit, and I am impressed with how mindfully you approached your recovery. What changes did you make as you moved forward to protect yourself from burnout?
Adam's worried about me. The first step was the recovery was not easy. So I'll finish up the story. Is I hit the burnout at Alteros, and my CEO at the time was just like, "Hey, we need you. Like, you need to recover." And they gave me a 1 month sabbatical, and
Mhm.
I took that month off. And all my coworkers were told, "Don't talk to her about work." In that month, I got a couple of texts being like, "It's not about work. I just want to know how you're doing." So I held that time to really just take a break from all of it.
Yeah.
And coming out of it, though, it was interesting. It was like I was not burned out. I was below the threshold, but still so weary of getting there again that it
Mhm.
really made me evaluate like what my limit is that's sustainable.
Yeah.
So when I kicked off Saplings and decided to do it full time, one of the things that's really, really important to me is that it is not a full time job. And I know that's crazy to say, but I want this new career to be sustainable for the rest of my life.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when I'm creeping up into like 40-hour weeks, I dial it back. I don't
Mhm.
have to do it. It's under my control because I want to be able to do this for the next 20 years, 30 years. Who knows? Whenever I'm done helping startups. The other thing that I realized through that is Alteros was the best work experience of my entire life. The team, we built it from 15 to over 50. We accomplished so many semi-impossible things. And I wouldn't change any of it. And
Mhm.
I thought I had one more startup in me. I can like,
Mhm.
I can do this one more time. And instead I pivoted into this thing where I'm helping a dozen or plus or more at a time. And so I've been able to remake those decisions so that my passions are still met, my strengths are still being used, I feel appreciated, but I'm doing it in a sustainable way.
No, that's very important, right? Like realizing you don't have to like be full time and everything or, working like 10, 12 hours every day. Just realizing, how someone can be still productive and, maintaining that like personal, or emotional strength. What led you, if I may ask, like, what were the things that led to the burnout? Was it like working on long hours or working on different projects at the same
So
time
one
or
of
just?
my superpowers is I can read a room of people in a
Mhm.
couple seconds. I can look across rooms, determine struggling or needs another clarity or needs to get pulled out for a coffee. Like I can do that so easily and quickly. And during COVID, that got 100 times harder.
Yeah.
I couldn't scan a room. So it was a lot of like one-on-one people connections, which is so important to me. So I did it. Like, how
Yeah.
are you doing? Should we do a coffee? Should we do an office hour? Like, when can we see each other? Do we meet and like socially distance? Like, how do we make sure that the connections are there and that people are communicating well? And without realizing I was doing it on top of my regular, it like added another job of
Yeah.
keeping communications open. And that really was what put it over the edge.
Yeah, no, and it makes it tough, like when like COVID especially and everything is like virtual. It's hard to like, I mean, if you're like, in office, you can just go and pat on someone's, back and just like have like a talk or water cooler, or you just go for coffee and lunch. It makes it more easy compared to like when everything is like virtual. So thank you so much, for sharing that, and how you came out of it. And it's very important to like always keep checking, are you overworked, or do you need time to just like not work on. And people who would really care, they would understand, and respect the time that someone is taking, to help them and support them. So that's amazing, to
And
share
as a
this.
leader, I feel like I have to practice what I preach. So if I'm telling you to check in with yourself and meet with your peers and have someone accountable, have an accountability partner, I have to do it myself.
Yeah. I love that. Love that. Thank you, Sherry. Do we have any more questions? I know we have 7 minutes left. Just wanted to check if anyone have any questions. Put it on the chat section. I'm looking at Q&A. We'll give a few more seconds.
I'll turn it on you if we have time.
Yeah, yeah, go ahead. Do you have
Tell us a little bit more of Boston New Technology and what your goals for the group is over the next 12 months.
Yeah, no, that's amazing and wonderful question. So, at Boston Technology, some of the new projects that we have, initiatives we have, the goal, I'll talk about the goal. We are thinking of one-stop shop for founders, entrepreneurs, tech and data enthusiastic, whatever they need help with. So, it can be for early stage founders, mid stage, or people who just want to work for a startup or who want to start a, have an idea but want to start building the ideas. In order to do that, we have a couple of events, for example, the pitch practices. So we have like tons of founders who are, they want to, sell the ideas to like VCs and get some fundings. We have some founders, they were like, oh, I want to, get my co-founder, or I want to have like sales. So we have this pitch practice like every Thursday at 12 p.m. where different founders from different industry come together. They talk about the ideas, and we have like amazing mentors. From different spaces, from different backgrounds, and they provide their feedback, and founders go back and work on that. Apart from that, we have startup showcases coming up, in September 26th for AI and EdTech, where we are bringing different founders who are working in AI and EdTech to present their ideas, their startups, and they will get feedback from like the judges and expert panel so that they can go back and work on those ideas, because we think like not every founder get that chance to showcase their ideas. So that's the platform we are trying to create, where founders can showcase their ideas. Another one is for the blue tech, in October, same thing, startup showcase for the founders who want to present their ideas. Another one we have coming up in November, which is for maybe on CPG showcase, and in December, like end of the year party. But the next year, this is one of the big event that we have every year at Boston New Technology. It's Startup Weekend. So it's a 3-day hackathon, a 3-day ideation to like launch. I mean, not last year, sorry, this year in April, we had 27 startups coming in on this 3-day event. They worked, there's only one single person came with an idea. At the end of the 3-day, they had their team together, they presented, they created prototype. So this is something we're going to have like next year in April, 3-day event, Startup Weekend, where we'll give that opportunity for them to work on the ideas. So at Boston Technology, we are trying to work with, create like a place where founders can come and have everything that they need and not struggle, because what we have seen is in Massachusetts, it's so fragmented. Like, people are doing things differently, and founders like, where should we go? What should we be doing? So making sure that we provide those resources, that platform for them, or community, as you said, like it's a lonely place sometimes, and you need those emotional support and accountability. So we're trying to build that, create that, community, and help them in any way we can. So that's like a little snapshot of what we're trying to do at Boston Technology.
And what are you proud of in the role that you've taken that you've accomplished so far?
Yeah, that's a great. Like I have like so I'm given my product and the tech background and the startup ecosystem. I'm also helping Boston Technology with the mentorship. So pitch practices. I help mentors. I mean mentees or founders. I'm also helping Boston Technology on the strategy side and the operation side. So that's the reason I was asking question on the processes and everything, because helping like, okay, what strategy we want to use, right? Like, what are the operational side we have to think about, and helping on the talent side as well. So for me, it's like different hats. Like also, it's not just like one hat that I'm wearing, but I'm like also given similar to you, like different kinds of experiences. I'm like, when the situation is presented, I'll just like use my different hats. And I'm most proud of is like Startup World Cup. I mean, every moment, like every day is, I love it, to be honest. So I can't pick and choose. But
You don't have
uh,
a favorite child?
yeah, exactly. When I asked my mom, like, you have everyone's favorite. So yeah, like I'm proud of every moment. I'm so proud of like, Jason and Steve, like they're amazing leader. They're so great to work with. I enjoy every day, like the things we're doing, the things we're planning, the vision that they have. The Startup World Cup was amazing, like last month that we had, the recent one, because now the founder got selected from Boston will go to Silicon Valley and they'll compete with other 50 founders and for $1 million prize, right? So the support and how we are like providing more visibility for those founders and showcase that, I think that's the proudest moment we have. But like, yeah, it's hard to pick and choose for me. Every day is like amazing.
Amazing. And you're doing a fabulous job.
Oh, thank you, Sherry.
So
Thank you
easy
so
to
much.
work with you, and you're so responsible and together, and just makes it such a pleasure.
Yeah, no, it's great working with you too. I know like we are right on time, and I think the call might drop, but if there are no other question, thank you so much, Sherry, for joining. How people reach out? Last question I have is like how people reach out to you if they want to connect with you,
Um,
or
yeah,
yeah.
find me on LinkedIn, Sheri Palazzo. Saplingsconsulting.com is the website. I'm open to, we didn't really talk about it. I think I can squeeze it in. My business is um, 80% startup work, so working one-on-one with startups, and then 20% of it is one-on-one coaching clients. So I'm open to either.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And I shared the website link as well in the chat. So feel free to reach out to Sherry if you guys have any questions or you want to like dive more into like mentorship and coaching. And thank you so much for joining us. And I'll talk to you guys soon.
Thank you,
Bye.
everyone, for joining us today.
Thank you.
You went on mute on me. Hold on. Okay, try now. Yes. Yeah.